Countries in the Americas are also reeling as the flow of migrants reaches historic levels. This September, the U.S. immigration agents processed more than 200,000 migrants who crossed the southern border unlawfully. This is the highest level recorded in 2023, as the Biden administration struggles to contain the mass migration gripping the region. According to the World Migration Report 2022, the United States has been the main destination for international migrants worldwide since 1970. In fact, the number of foreign-born people in the country has increased more than fourfold, from fewer than 12 million in 1970 to over 50 million in 2020, and the biggest groups of migrants, 10,853,105, came from Mexico. At present, a crisis is going on at the US-Mexico border with a surge of migrants in recent weeks. It has led to increased security checks at the frontier, causing trade delays. A report indicates that in July 2022, 4,000 Mexican families arrived at the border. A year later, that number had more than quadrupled, reaching nearly 22,000. After weeks of travel on dangerous roads and rugged trails, hundreds of Venezuelan migrants experienced a bittersweet moment when they reached Eagle Pass, Texas, on the U.S. border with Mexico, only to encounter a thicket of barbed wire and armed soldiers.
I'm 57 years old, and I never thought at this age I would go through all this because of the crisis in my country.
32-year-old Venezuelan Victor Manuel Atencio had finally given up. He feels that the crisis roiling his country has ruined all his hopes for the future. So he decided to migrate to the United States. But his journey was fraught with difficulties.
We left Venezuela on July 30th, and we have been on this journey for approximately 22 days, and it has seemed quite endless. My life has been passing by, and I have not seen any fruit because, unfortunately, the country where I was born has not given me the opportunities.
Many, like Atencio, undertake this risky journey because of poor living conditions in Venezuela, which has been hit hard by political turmoil and economic collapse. Meanwhile, billionaire Elon Musk waded into the U.S. immigration debate last week after he visited the southern border in Texas, United States. He shared the video on X and called it an unfiltered view of the ongoing migrant crisis.
On here, I'm at Eagle Pass, just arrived. And,
Seen wearing a cowboy hat and aviator sunglasses, Musk turned into a citizen journalist to provide first-hand information on the migrant issue. According to a report earlier this week, Mexico reached an agreement with the United States to their respective home countries and implement several measures. New York City is facing a huge crisis due to a surge in the arrival of migrants. Dozens of young men from West Africa squeezed together on the sidewalk, wait for days for shelter in front of the Roosevelt Hotel in Manhattan. Since April 2022, more than 116,000 migrants have arrived in New York City. Most came from the US-Mexico border, fleeing hardship in their home countries and seeking asylum, a form of protection that would allow them to remain in the United States and not be deported. Around 61,400 migrants were staying in homeless shelters as of September. New York's migrant crisis is actually several crises in one. A humanitarian crisis, as people from around the world flee instability and poverty and make their way to New York. A housing crisis, as a city that is required to find shelter for migrants struggles to do so. And a political crisis.
It's not going to get any better
For New York City Mayor Eric Adams, whose handling of the situation has come under increasing scrutiny from fellow Democrats and from conservatives alike. The Biden administration announced a new asylum policy in an effort to stem illegal crossings. The policy disqualified most people from applying for asylum if they had crossed into the United States without either securing an appointment at an official port of entry or proving that they had sought legal protection in another country along the way. The policy was struck down by a federal judge in July, but was upheld on appeal. As a result, the number of people crossing the border dipped, but in July it appeared to be on the rise again.
You need to see across Europe and the United States a reform of migration globally within these countries that do it in a way that people can apply from their home countries to come to the United States, to go to Europe more regularly and more easily. And if you do that, you really could crack down on people using these irregular routes and using traffickers and using irregular means to enter the countries. And so what we need is leadership on a global scale. And that's unfortunately what we're lacking throughout the world, whether it be in the United States or in Europe.
Around the world, governments continue to adopt a tougher line on immigration, but with short-term strategies dominating the discussions, many of the persistent drivers of migration go unnoticed and unaddressed. A collaborative effort to craft a global consensus on migration is urgently needed, one that is definitely not shaken by demands for quick resolution.